Sustainability is applicable to everything. The word can be overused and underappreciated because of it, but the word can also help us tune our senses and redirect the direction our lives and world are heading. This presentation strives to better understand such a powerful term and the many ways to apply it to our world and our future. This picture depicts a major facet of the problem we have all helped to create. Nothing says I love you like cheap crap made in China by slave labor, sold by a company owned by billionaires benefiting from corporate welfare, paying slave wages to employees kept from enjoying Thanksgiving with their families. We are all guilty of it. We look for the deals, the most bang for our buck, the steals. I understand it. I'm not void of the allure. But we rarely think beyond the price tag as to what we buy and the repercussions of our decisions. Remember Newton's third law of motion? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Everything we do has some implication. It is about time we take responsibility for them. So what has sustainability come to mean to me over the semester? To simplify it, sustainability is working with the economy, the equity of people, and the environment to create equal and better opportunities for generations to come. It is changing the desire to grow the bottom line to the triple bottom line. Money isn't everything in this world, but if we wish to continue making money doing what we do, we must rethink and recreate the system we live and breathe within. Our world works in cycles, or in other words, systems. The hydraulic cycle, the digestive system, etc., etc. The systems can carry on and on and on. There is no end, and each cycle has a level of interconnection. Sustainability is so much more than just a change in businesses. It is a mindset. To reach a sustainable life, we must find balance. Balance will lead to an understanding and respect for each other and our environments. And with understanding and respect comes harmony. And by understanding balance and harmony means we make a change in consciousness. Consciousness is defined as being awake and aware of one's surroundings, or the fact of awareness by the mind of itself and the world. This is an example of a cycle we can control. Sustainability is a cycle we can create. Our current paradigm is a linear system. It is a one-way street and a dead-end road that jumps off the cliffs. It is irrational and immature. It is killing off language and culture every second. Ever since colonialism in the 16th century, we have designed a simplified system of capital economics and dependency to keep those from the South under the North. The natural economy that the world previously ran on disappeared. And since the development of the New World, we have lost our economy, our equity, and our harmony with nature. Basically, the antithesis of sustainability. As David Lempert, who wrote Why We Need a Cultural Red Book for Endangered Cultures Now, says, what is important to note is that biodiversity itself is not an appeal that is easily linked to economics or human well-being. Climate change is the real issue that affects people. Nevertheless, the idea of irreversible loss and of diversity itself has an intrinsic motivating element. The world is not the only thing worth saving, for if we do not save the cultures of the planet, we will lose our own human biodiversity. Sustainability is as much about protecting diversity in all forms as it is saving the planet. Culture is the human form of biodiversity. Biodiversity is the defining health of our ecosystems. But if our economy doesn't see things this way, the very goal of trade to create future wealth ends up killing it, as David Lempert sees it. But what if we redesign the way we think about our future and how we measure it? In other words, what if the stable human cultural diversity were recognized as the real key to sustainability and to growth, and not vice versa? Instead of measuring growth by dollars, we could measure healthy, sustainable growth by cultural diversity. We can continue to learn from one another in our different backgrounds. Rather than creating complete exported globalized trade, we could increase our microeconomies in our communities. The only dependency we really need is the planet. Of course, we need help from others. And in some cases, we need their goods and services to make our lives easier. But we should not be dependent of the idea of exponential growth and progress. A common assumption among social scientists is that the goal of globalization is efficiency of resource extraction and homogenization, and that it follows a logic of colonialism from the 16th to the 20th centuries. To me, globalization is like communism. It sounds great as a theory, but in practice it falls apart. The theory of globalization only works if everyone is on the same playing field, meaning any other country like China holds their environmental standards to the same as America. Same with healthcare or wages. Otherwise, globalization can never truly work because each country is playing a different game. Globalization is like a top-down policy. Rarely do those work. You cannot force-feed a way of life to a culture that beats to a different drum. You have to work with them to create a tempo that can work for everyone. As described in Whitford and Ruhanen's piece on Australian tourism, sustainable development implies that 1. Built environments become more livable through the substantial reuse of existing man-made and natural resources. 2. Ecosystems become healthier. 3. Economic development becomes more responsive to the needs of place rather than furthering the profits of a powerful few. And 4. The benefits of improved environmental and economic conditions become more equitably distributed. However, government at all levels has received criticism for hijacking and even abusing the term sustainable to legitimize tourism development and achieve self-serving outcomes and for using it as a political slogan. And consequently, sustainable tourism policies may give the appearance of a paradigm shift, but in reality are focused on traditional concerns of economic returns. Sure, the idea for sustainable tourism to fit within the globalized realm of society sounds like a great idea. In this day and age, tourism is how we exploit history and culture to the masses. But there will never be a silver bullet policy that will work for all cultures to conform to. These top-down policies create homogeneity and continue to destroy our cultural diversity. French journalist Hervé Kempf shows us that the sustainable problems we face are actually all the same. We must understand that the ecological crisis and the social crisis are two faces of the same disaster, and this disaster is implemented by a system of power that has no other objective than to maintain the privileges of the ruling class. The environment and places that we hold so near and dear do not exist without their own reaction to our social structures. Environmental privilege exists in all parks, forests, and outdoor hotspots. In a simplified example, the rich buy up the land closest to the desired environment, creating an environmental privilege, while the poor are forced out of the area, but must commute in to work and maintain the status quo of the area. The rich reap the benefits, while the poor live in the byproduct. It is an economic externality. The impact of the rich forces the poor into greater threats and losses. Environmental privilege can include having organic foods, neighborhoods with healthy air, and exclusive access to outdoor amenities. Although environmental privilege can be hard to witness at some times, the environmental injustice or racism can easily be found. Environmental injustice can include living near toxic Superfund sites, having contaminated water, and working jobs that expose an individual to hazardous chemicals, like pesticides. Many believe this problem on environmental degradation exists because of overpopulation, blaming immigrants for the problem due to lack of education and lack of belonging. However, the privileged and the injustice are both contributing to the population growth. It just so happens that in this case, the privileged are claiming the victim, but the immigrants are there to support the leisure economy. Many of us believe that saving the environment will be the biggest battle in sustainability, but Parks and Pello take a deeper look. We like to think that our environmental movement is as pristine and unblemished as Mother Earth, but the reality is far closer to the state of our planet today, sullied by our ignorance, corrupted by our ideologies, and threatened by our own self-interests. Again, sustainability cannot work if we do not work with the environment, the economy, and the people. No facet has more importance than the other. Even our national parks came to exist at a cost. The parks were made possible by removing Native American tribes. We may idolize their intentions and what the parks stand for, but we also ignore their injustices. The planet's health can be improved only if we also take care of the people who live on it. Instead of ignoring the reality that the immigrants support much of the labor in our economy around the world, it is time for us to recognize the skeletons in the closet. We have to look both ways before crossing the road. I like to think of it as a change in philosophy. It is like Eastern versus Western medicine. Western medicine prescribes pills and medication to treat the symptoms, whereas Eastern medicine looks deeper and tries to fix the root cause. So instead of prescribing temporary fixes to continue down the same road, we need to reroute onto the path towards consciousness and sustainability. The opposite of turning a blind eye is awareness, and awareness is a form of consciousness. The path to a sustainable future starts with increasing consciousness. It is constantly learning. It is questioning the status quo. It is pondering what reaction each action we take will make. Sigmund Freud believed we live most of our lives unconsciously. He argued that humans act unconsciously in order to fool ourselves into believing we act as rational and moral beings. However, that in reality our behavior is led by selfish fears, wishes, and subversive needs. Freud may be a little dark, but his ideas have some validation. Just think, would we buy those new clothes if we knew it would keep someone working in a sweatshop working for pennies? We know these facts. We just choose to ignore them. Freud also pointed out that psychological conflict is painful, and to reduce that pain we fragment our awareness, unconsciously ignoring the rest of the story. Or in Freud's own words, on the one hand, with the help of certain mechanisms, he rejects reality and refuses to accept any prohibition. On the other hand, in the same breath he recognizes the dangers of reality, takes over the fears of that danger as a pathological symptom, and tries subsequently to divest himself of the fear. It must be confessed that this is a very ingenious solution of the difficulty. Freud called the results of our unconscious fragmentations our defense mechanisms. And our defenses are actually very irrational. They distort how we think and eventually lead to bigger problems down the line. But we use these defense mechanisms to relieve short-term stress. We rationalize to create attractive but untrue explanations for our behavior. We intellectualize by distancing ourselves emotionally from the actions at hand, like saying topsoil loss affects farmers and not me. We displace our anger by yelling at a friend instead of a poor driver. We suppress our fears by turning the blind eye away from bad news. We repress our fears by unconsciously ignoring the facts. We deny the information at hand to ease our tensions. We use reaction formation to deny certain feelings and instead express against others with hostility. We project faults in others that we fail to see in ourselves. We become apathetic and lose ability to care because it is easier. And we sublimate our anxieties into creativity, like art. Not all defenses are bad. In fact, Freud believed that our defense mechanisms are necessary. Being able to confront our defenses to face our anxieties is the founding steps towards improving our own lives and creating a sustainable world. I believe it is the first step to create change. The path to a sustainable world can begin when we face our metaphorical and physical defenses. The change will take small wins before we can become what we believe in. A perfect example is the win Mendocino County had in 2004 to ban GMO crops from their fields. Mendocino County is known for being a famously counterculture region. By banding together local activists and decentralizing their efforts to push the simple message to keep GMOs out of the area to protect the environment and the economy, Mendocino was able to stand up against the agro giants. The strong locally embedded relationships and networks showed a great example of how small ideas can create big changes. Not only was Mendocino County Yes on H activity oriented towards such a relocalization, keeping local control over local agriculture, but the fact that agriculture and food still remains largely embedded in society in Mendocino County gave activists a common culture to draw upon. As someone who has been born into environmental privilege, I used to believe sustainability was all about the environment, and to some extent, I believe it still is, but it is equally about how we value others' lives against our own. Sometimes I feel like the disease, other times I feel hopeful. We are rarely in control in this life, but I do now know that one of the few things I do have control over is the power to choose. We all have that power. We just have to choose to make the most of it. Sustainability has transformed the way I think and act on a daily basis. It has made me more conscious of my unconscious decisions and more conscious of my previous conscious decisions. I truly believe the path begins when we start to think. We are no longer in the Great Depression. We are in the 21st century, an age where we should be defined by our wisdom, compassion, and harmony. So we may not have flying cars or teleportation yet, but we still have the mind to build a future together. By changing our consciousness on how we think towards culture, globalization, environmental exclusion, and our own reactions to them, we can reimagine our world. In my careers and life, I plan to continue educating myself on the subject of sustainability. I hope to work in a field that allows me to help create a piece of sustainability. I wish to reach outside of my niche community and expand the conscious outreach that will lead to sustainability. I plan to join organizations that I align with. I plan to speak out to friends and family. I wish to offer a helping hand with those that are willing to work towards the future. I hope to create an awareness within the communities I'm involved in. I hope to make sustainability a major part of my life. This degree will only be the beginning.